One. What's going on, everybody? My name is Jack Kelly, host of Point to the Spot, a US-based podcast focused on the world of football. Today, joining me as usual is my entirely bonkers friend, Reed Hammond. Reed, how are you?
I'm here. I made it.
And also joining the show is a future presidential candidate, Ball for Prez 2020, Andrew Ball. Andrew, how are you?
I would venture guess that I'm doing better than certainly better than Reed.
Reed does not seem to be faring too well. The formal diagnosis from the doctor was what one likes to refer to as the barley stew, the barley flu, and he's not doing too well. But we're fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
So there was another busy weekend. Well, I guess busy is an overstatement, as the Premier League took a break. But FA Cup action this weekend. It is a juicy weekend indeed, as even though not every team played, we did get some good action out of the cup itself. Right away from the get-go yesterday, high-intensity drama at the Turf Moor as non-league Lincoln City comes to play against the English footballing giants that are Burnley Football Club. And the non-league team enters the fortress that is Turf Moor and snags an 89th minute winner against the Premier League side to advance into the quarterfinal of the FA Cup, the first non-league football club ever to make it this far in the competition. Andrew, I guess we'll go to you right away on this. What is going on with the Red Imps of Lincoln City, and do you foresee them making it onto the semifinal?
I will say this. I do not want Spurs to draw them because if you lose to Lincoln, it's embarrassing. If you beat Lincoln, then you're the jackasses that killed the dream for the Red Imps. A bit when they do the draw, but I would not want to play them. They're emboldened. They're top of the heap in the National League division. They got the confidence. You know, they play the Dragons, so to speak. You know, it'd be fun to see this story go on a little longer. I think I can speak on behalf of all fans when I say that. And I think it'd be nice to have the Sudden United story live on a little longer.
Go to hell. We see the thing about this match too. Lincoln wasn't necessarily, lucky in a sense. Like, Burnley didn't overly outplay them, 60-40 on possession. Lincoln did require 5 saves. They did only generate the 1 shot on goal, but it went in. Overall, I don't know. I think that they played a pretty decent match. Reed, do you have any love for the 5th division team here?
Yeah, it's kind of wild. This really hasn't happened ever. We haven't really seen a team progress like this. And especially a team that can beat Burnley at home, that's, you really got to take them as a contender now. They have something about them, because I would venture to say that most Premier League sides can't go and beat Burnley at home. And granted, they didn't probably go into that thinking they're going to need to be on top form, but nonetheless, it's an achievement. You can't take it away from them.
Yeah, it was quite the game. Obviously, some incredible scenes for those traveling Lincoln City fans down there when he snagged that goal, when Raggett snagged that 89th minute winner. But let us move on. Huddersfield Town 0, Manchester City 0. The championship side holding Pep Guardiola's side at bay yesterday. It wasn't the strongest lineup from Pep Guardiola's Manchester City team, but, formidable enough that you expect them to beat the championship side. Obviously, big draw for Huddersfield, forcing the replay, but now they have to take a trip to the Etihad. Middlesbrough 3, Oxford United 2. Premier League club left it late, but Stuani got the winner in the 86th minute. This was actually quite a good game. Oxford came roaring back. They scored twice in 2 minutes in the 64th and 65th to make it 2-2. And then Middlesbrough's quality just managed to down the League One side. Obviously, a little heartbreak for Reed in this one. Did your young Portuguese boy feature in this one?
No, he's actually Spanish, but yeah, he nicked a goal. He grabbed the equalizer. He brought it to 2-2. Tony Martinez, the man that a lot of people are saying might be that 20 goal a season striker that we've been looking for so long. And just because he has good technique, he has a good sense of positioning, he's not injury prone, and he works so hard. But I think more interesting, perhaps not more interesting, but this is a very narratively rich match because Oxford United have some of the best analytics, have one of the best analytics departments in all of that level of soccer. So they're a big favorite of the analytics community. So it was nice to see him, have a fun match, but nonetheless they lost, but they played well. They did themselves right.
Yeah, the traditional 4-4-2 getting it done, almost getting it done for the lower league side, but that new 4-3-3 formation that we're seeing out of Middlesbrough was too much. We'll move on. Leicester City, their season just keeps getting worse for them. Obviously, now facing a relegation battle, something that no one would have thought after last season. But Millwall 1, Leicester City 0. Andrew, what do you make of this game? What do you make of Millwall taking down Leicester with only 10 men?
Shambolic display from Leicester. I mean, you're a man up for almost an entire half after Jake Cooper got sent off in the 52nd minute, and you can't do anything with it. And then you concede, on the stroke of full time. To be fair, they controlled most of the game in terms of possession, but you look at Millwall's stats; they actually outshot Leicester. Goal anyway, and this is a team right now that just does not seem to have a lot of focus. Reed said after the game yesterday that they're going down, and it's hard to say right now that they won't. They just do not look like they have what it takes, which is staggering, as we've discussed numerous times on this podcast, but it still just blows my mind that Leicester are in this position.
Yeah, it's certainly frightful to be a Fox fan right now. Well, we'll get yesterday's final match of the day. Chelsea 2, Wolverhampton 0. The Wolves could not get it done at the Molineux. Reed, I'll ask you about this. And one particular player that I want you to highlight would be Danny Bath, playing in the central defense for Wolverhampton. What do you make of the Wolves crashing out after a pretty tough but pretty good cup run this season?
Yeah, they were exceptional in the first half. I think they're very tight. Not a lot of space for Diego Costa and company to find. But nonetheless, Chelsea's quality got them over the line. Wolves are, despite their league form isn't great, they are really hanging on to the bottom of the championship. We'll see if they can stay up. But it's a team with lofty ambitions, and I think this is one indication of it. And Danny Bath, a man who we are currently embroiled in contract negotiations in our FIFA 14 Wolverhampton Wanderers manager mode.
Yes, Danny Bath is indeed a bastard. But we'll move on to today's match, and I don't even have to say anything besides Tottenham Hotspur 3, Fulham 0. I'll just turn it right over to Andrew to hear what he has to say about Harry Kane's hat-trick.
It's good to see Spurs looking more like their usual selves. Won't go into too much detail, but it's also good to see them actually dominate an FA Cup match, something that they have not really done. Harry Kane, not actually man of the match for me. It was Christian Eriksen with his creative wizardry. Also a great performance from Dele Alli. Both guys kind of showing what they're going to need to unlock some of these defenses, which is a really positive thing to see, even though Fulham, not Premier League quality, but still good to see that they can bring that flair that they're going to need to break down, a Stoke or a Palace in weeks. Clinical stuff from Harry Kane, per usual. Good to see him get back on the score sheet. And I'll end it with a nice shout out for Harry Winks. Spurs have really been looking for a guy to fill in for Moussa Dembele. Dembele getting up there in age. Harry Winks, the English youngster, does not really have quite the same strength in the midfield that Dembele has, but boy, does he have that vision and passing ability. On numerous occasions, he was breaking some ankles in Fulham's midfield today. Really rate this guy. Think that he will be the future in the midfield for Spurs, and he's gotten 2 consecutive cup starts now. He played in the midweek game against Ghent. Hope to keep seeing him get the run out from Mauricio Pochettino, and hopefully he and the entire Spurs team can build from this positive result.
Yeah, one North London team through. Hopefully we get another one in tomorrow's match. But I would like to tip my hat to Harry Winks as well. Got 80 minutes, played very well. And another thing that must be encouraging to Spurs fans, of course, they grabbed a goal in the 16th minute. Obviously, they've been stalling a little bit against some of the clubs that would just love to pack it in against them to lock in those, or to bang in those goals early on. So that's got to be an encouraging sign. The final match of the weekend, Manchester United currently playing Blackburn Rovers. Just over 5 minutes to go in that one as we finish this podcast. The Red Devils are currently sitting up 2-1 on the back of goals from Marcus Rashford and Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Of course, Blackburn had gone up 1-0, and United has come back to take the lead. Reed, we'll get your thoughts on this. What is going on with Blackburn? Obviously, we know how far they have fallen in recent years, but I almost would have pegged them to knock off Manchester United in this one.
Yeah, that's a bit of a bold prediction. That's kind of like Andrew with Hull. It's one of those instances where the quality is going to shine through despite adversity, because there's just too much money on the pitch. You kind of get to see Blackburn's that bit of a spine that's left over from the glory days, but it's really just I really don't anticipate any drama in the last 5 minutes. I think it's going to be a rather professional Mourinho performance.
Yeah, I think that Mourinho has a history of always just getting enough there to get the job done. We saw that obviously with the Chelsea side that he's built, and is still hanging on to a little bit of that mentality today. Let's take a short break right now, though, and when we come back, we'll be having yet another rendition of Andrew Ball's Ball is Life, where we'll be discussing the disparities in women's soccer around the world. So stay tuned for that.
Poor music.
I'll be right back.
Hey, Andrew.
How's it going, bud?
All right. How are you? I wasn't really like as crazy as I was last year. Last year I was really crazy. This year I was pretty tame. But, as tame as, not that tame.
Relatively speaking. It's all right.
Yeah, relatively speaking. I think what saved me is I stopped at a dorm and I got like 2 hot dogs. It was good. I got it at like 11:30. I think it really saved me today.
It's little things,
Yeah. Where did he go?
I have no idea. Where does Jack ever go, though?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I might do the next Fable on Spanish Secession because it's super cool.
That's an interesting topic.
Yeah, in the last Copa del Rey final was Barca versus Bilbao, and none of them sung the national anthem. The entire stadium booed. It's bonkers.
I was trying to think of other countries that have the same thing going. I couldn't think of any. Not in Europe. There's kind of a weird thing with Corsica in France, but Corsica doesn't really want to succeed. So
there's kind of Napoli in Italy, but not as much.
Oh, that's true. Italy's just weird in general.
Italy's super fucking weird, dude. People are gonna kill each other again. That's my hot take for next year, that people start killing each other again in Italy.
I believe it.
Because that shit's going nuts. The right wing in Italy is stepping up really big.
Oh Yeah. I mean, you
Big
got
league.
country with like such massive disparity in wealth between the North and the South.
Well,
like,
it's not even disparity of wealth. It's like they're packed in so close, but yet like everyone's so distinct,
that's true.
and it's like a disparity of wealth that's built off of like centuries. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, yeah, that's very true.
Like Napoli's always been poor, and always have been plucking out these South American strikers somehow.
That'll be a good fable. I look forward to
Yeah,
a fable on either one of those.
it should be
Would be a
good.
fable.
Yeah, they it should be cool. Just because Spain is in such rough shape, dude. Apart.
I feel like we're getting to the point where like one of those might actually succeed.
Yeah, because Barcelona has a decent their economy is more sustainable than the Spanish economy at large.
If Barcelona succeed, I mean Spain is kind of fucked. The Spanish economy.
Yeah.
Or if Catalonia succeeds.
Yeah, if Catalonia succeeds. Yeah. And it's also it's kind of like it's their physical capital, I think. Just not like capital as in nationally, but like the physical capital of like the historical sites and the tourism that brings in, plus like the industry that's there. It's just going to decimate the economy. In Bilbao, I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Bilbao
I still exist. I'm sorry.
I'm pretty sure Bilbao is like a farming community as well, like mostly.
Yeah, I think the Basque Country's pretty agrarian.
Yeah, the Basques, dude.
I don't know what that would do to their economy. But
the Basques are like terrorists, bro.
They're crazy. They like blow shit up.
Yeah, they blow shit up like all the time. Like 3 years ago, they like had like a bus bomb. I remember.
What did I get into?
We're talking about Spanish secession.
Oh, sweet. I'm all about it.
It's gonna be my next fable. Cool.
Wait, I have a fable.
What? You want to
Guest
do
fable
one?
from Jack Kelly.
You want to do one?
No.
What's it on?
What is it?
I was farting with you.
Oh, well, that was dumb.
If you were to do a fable, Jack, what would you do it on?
I would probably do the rich ass history of the club that I played with in high school. Won 6 national championships.
Bavarians. You should do one on the Bavarians.
There's 6 years. Like amateur Open Cups, but Open Cup championships, so nonetheless.
They all count this.
Jack, you should do one on Babs eventually.
Yeah, could be cool. Okay, let's have Andrew bring it back because this episode is gonna be long as fuck because we just took a 10-minute break.
You took a 10-minute break.
I had to handle some business. All right,
Okay.
Andrew, you're back. 5, 4, 3.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show. This is Andrew Ball with this week's installment of Ball is Life. Each week, we take a look at the politics of soccer, and today we will be examining a topic which has been a hot commodity in this country. Commodity may be the wrong word, but a hot point of order in this country in the past couple of years. It's less discussed abroad, and that is pay discrepancies in women's soccer when compared with men's leagues. So I'm going to kick this segment off with a little interactive question for the guys. So you two need to unmute yourself.
Oh, hello.
How much would you guess the winner of the Ladies FA Cup receives in prize money?
Like,
what's that? How much do you think the
club
receives? Yeah, the club as a whole.
Maybe like 200K.
Reed, what do you think?
I'm gonna put out an aggregate of like all the money they get in all the rounds, 2 million in total for the whole club.
Okay, so you're both wrong, not surprisingly.
Damn.
As recently as 2015, the champion got a grand total prize of £5,000. The winner now. Yeah.
What?
The winner now receives £25,000.
Still, excuse me?
There are concerns that, though, because some teams to play at Wembley, because now they have the final at Wembley, teams have to take a financial hit because you have to factor in travel and expenses if you're not a London-based team, that the prize money does not cover those expenses. And this is all to have the chance to play in one of the most revered, storied cup competitions in the world. So going on to player salaries are equally meager. The Central League in England pays contracts. This is kind of like what we do in the US with the National Women's Soccer League. The Central League pays the contracts, and those are worth up to £26,000 a year. Some star players can make up to 4 times that amount, but that's relatively rare. And even in the top tier of English women's football, which is the Women's Super League, there are players who make as little as £50 to £100 a week. That's according to an agent a couple years ago. So the figures may have changed a bit since then, but still infinitely less than what you would get in the Premier League. This is not something unique to England. Going to France's top division, the Division Féminine, where Alex Morgan just signed to play for Olympique Lyon, which is one of the most storied women's teams in Europe. That the French's top league only began paying professional contracts in 2010. And the first time that a team paid out any sort of transfer fee was in 2013 when Marie-Laure Delis for Paris Saint-Germain. And salaries are still hovering around €5,000 a month, which is ticking up from where they used to be, semi-professional contracts. But this is still less probably than what you would see in Domino's Ligue 2. And finally, we'll go to Sweden, which is one of the most competitive women's leagues in Europe. And their players will make around €1,500 a week. And oftentimes, like, players will have to support themselves with part-time jobs or studying in university. Now, a common argument is that the women's game is simply not as popular as the men's game. In economic terms, that means that they're not, you don't pay them as much because they're not as productive in an economic sense. Swedish teams often average fewer than 1,000 fans a match. Clubs in England and Germany have to receive support from their football associations in order to subsidize teams. And the average attendance in the 2015-16 Women's UEFA Champions League, so the most recent Champions League, was roughly 1,500 per match. That pales in comparison to the men's competition, where you see the average attendance at around 40,000. So in the US, we actually have discussed this a little bit because the US women's national team, which is the most successful of its kind in the world, it's turned out some of the most recognizable American athletes, male or female, Mia Hamm, Abby Wambach, etc. Their success has dwarfed that of the men's side, which will come as no surprise to our listeners. But in a complaint filed last year with the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the players pointed to a pay and bonus structure that paid out roughly a quarter of what the men get paid. And this comes on top of controversy in Women's World Cup in Canada, where prominent U.S. players and some of their international counterparts criticized FIFA for staging key matches on turf, something players allege would never happen in a men's World Cup. Yet the popularity of women's soccer actually is growing by leaps and bounds, both at home in the U.S. and abroad. After the U.S. national team captured that 2015 World Cup, they embarked on a 10-match victory tour where they played in front of packed stadiums and brought in over $23 million in revenue when you combine that with their prize money for winning the World Cup. And at that tournament, the English national team finished a shock third, which is the second best finish by an English senior team, men or women, in a World Cup ever. Much better, I might add, than the men's team has done in pretty much every World Cup in the past 20 years. The Three Lionesses are credited with bringing about somewhat of a resurgence in the game in England, including an announcement, which I alluded to earlier, that the FA Cup final, the ladies' FA Cup final, is now played at Wembley, something it had not been previously, which is a pretty cool experience for those players, coaches, and fans. So while you could argue that the women's game is less profitable and thus players don't get as much pay, the fact is that there's really right now no incentive for girls or young women to pursue soccer professionally globally, aside from just pure love of the game. We take for granted that men and boys will play in well-funded academies and in youth programs, something which still does not exist in countries like England, despite efforts from the FA to correct that. And I think that if leagues and federations were to treat football equally for both sexes, I think that they would really be surprised by the positive reaction from fans. I mean, you look at some NWSL clubs in the US, really, when Orlando and Portland have received lots of great support from fan bases there. And I think you could see a growth worldwide if people were willing to plump up the money necessary and invest. And I'm also going to take this moment real quick to give a shout out to Spurs ladies, who are top of the English third division. They're unbeaten in league play, and they are also on to the fourth round of the FA Cup, where they will square off against WSL side Brighton later today. So as always, come on, you Spurs. And do tweet at us telling us what you think about these disparities at point2 with the numeral 2 spot, the spot. I really botched that. Okay. For now, I'll throw it back to you guys and hear your thoughts on this, what I think is an important issue.
Yeah, I think that, just seeing it, obviously there's a big 60 Minutes that was done about that recently, or, within the last 6 months or so in the United States. It's kind of outrageous because personally, I find myself almost preferring to watch the women's national team play to the men's national team because they're so much less infuriating to watch. Also, the quality of the soccer on the pitch is just obscenely higher for the women's team than it is for the men's team. And the fact that they get paid so much less when I guarantee that they drew more money last year than the men's team did, because they sell out almost every time they play versus the men's team not even filling the second level of CenturyLink. I think it's ridiculous. I do really, really, really love the fact that global soccer or global women's soccer is growing. I think it's really encouraging not only to see it's fun for the United States to be good, but I do like to see that other teams around the world are starting to be competitive and that the U.S. isn't just blowing past everybody as easily as they used to, especially in places like in Africa. I think it's fun that there are a number of African nations that now field women's teams for the Olympics and for the Women's World Cup. Obviously, it's fun to see them doing well in a country like Australia. I know that there are some of the Asian countries that are doing quite well, and even some countries in the Middle East where traditionally women's sports have not been popular. Women's football is becoming relevant there, mostly through the form of futsal, which, if you don't know, is an indoor variation of the game of football. But I think it's growing, and I think that is only something that is healthy for the game as it helps promote soccer culture and football culture around the world. And I don't know, I'm always big on being inclusive for everyone, and so I think that FIFA and individual FAs really do need to make this a top priority in the world of football.
And I'll just jump in with one quick point, Jack. You kind of brought up the style of play issue, and I watched quite a bit of the 2015 World Cup, and oftentimes my dad would walk in while I was watching, and he's not a soccer fan, although he will watch it with me sometimes. And he instantly preferred the women's game, just the passing, the technical differences he thought were more interesting, as well as the absence of diving, which is welcome to anyone who watches the men's game. So I think that aesthetically, there actually is a lot to be said for kind of the stylistic differences between the two.
No, absolutely. I think that something
it's not a step down in quality, which some people kind of just automatically assume, unfortunately.
Often you hear pundits in the men's game talking about, especially this is an Alexi Lalas favorite, where you trade a soccer player for an athlete in the men's game, where somebody that is a true technical talent will come off late in the match, and you put on somebody that is just pure pace, lacks in the technical game. I think that women's football, there's a big emphasis on it, and I think that you don't really have that issue. I think everybody is a footballer. You don't end up with too many just plain old athletes. You know what I mean by that? Reed, what are your thoughts about the subject?
Yeah, no, especially I like that. I like that criticism of the men's team that we don't see in the women's, because let's be Josie Altidore. He's kind of shit. Let's be honest. He's just a lump. It's interesting. It's just because it's difficult, just because in the U.S. women's soccer is an outlier, so it's difficult to make broad statements about the pay disparity throughout the world, just because in the United States we are a strong outlier when it comes to revenue brought in by women's football. So it's difficult to make definitive statements, in regards to this, but I think what we've seen in the States can translate to Europe, and it's a good bet that it will. So
Yeah, I think that women's football is on the up and up. Obviously, it's becoming more and more popular. Andrew, is there anything else you want to add, or should we wrap up and head on to part 3 of the show?
I'll just jump in that I think there might be potential for a women's football segment on Point to the Spot.
Yeah, I think it's there. We'll have to reach out to our vast network of correspondents and find somebody that, excuse me, knows a little bit more about the game and the ins and outs of it than we do. Not being the women's game, is of course we are experts on the men's game, so be watching for that. But for now, we are going to take a short break, and when we come back, we are going to be joined by one of the founders of Non-League America, and we're going to be talking about some American non-league football. So stay tuned for that, because this is going to be extremely educational for us and for you all. Until then, we'll be right back. Good God. I got allergies.
That's a problem when it's 60 degrees.
I know.
Also, I don't know. Sorry if my audio got fucked up in the middle there. I saw you were adjusting it.
No, you're good. You were like all of a sudden just really loud, and I was like, why is he so loud?
Yeah, I moved the microphone closer. So it might be. Hopefully that doesn't sound like shit on the actual episode.
when can we expect Stevie?
I'm gonna hit him up and be like, what's your status? I think I want to stop the broadcast right now.